I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order. Will the birthday municipal court clerk please call the roll for us this evening? In fairness, you do have to share your birthday with the council president. Birthday twins. I hear the city manager's bringing donuts tomorrow to celebrate.
Councillor Duggar.
I'm here.
Councillor Hartmeyer-Pritt.
Here.
Councillor Hassan.
Present.
Councillor Kimmy.
Here.
Councillor Teeter.
I'm here.
There he is.
He is remote.
Councillor Tivnon.
Here.
Mayor Beatty.
Here. All right, so a little preview of tonight's agenda. We're going to go through our visitor comment section. We'll have our council items and staff items. We'll have consent, which is routine government business. So for our troops in the back, what you're watching tonight, when you see something on consent, it's stuff that the council has already talked about or we're giving authority to the city manager to act on. It's often very routine and boring, but you're happy to look through the list. After that, if you guys want to stick around, we have a couple proclamations, one of which involves our police department, which I think will be pretty exciting for you to stick around on. It's Public Works Week, and it's also the start of Asian American and Pacific Islander Month. Then we're going to hold a public hearing on our development code, and then we have two pieces of routine business for a future code, a work session on our council budget, and then we will be adjourned. So with that, we will start tonight with visitor comment. As a reminder, visitor comment section is a piece of important to government work, but it is a time for us to hear from the community. It's not a time for dialogue, rather a time for us to listen. If follow-up is required, our city manager is in attendance and will do the reach out on our behalf. With that, we have one card with us today. Daryl Johan, please join us. You have 3 minutes to address the council when you're ready and seated. 3 minutes, sir.
Hello, you can hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
So the card is about inoperable vehicles on city streets. About a month ago, a neighbor of ours who has been collecting cars, up to 7 of them, on our cul-de-sac, parked a truck frame in front of our house. A frame with just wheels on it, no motor, no anything. And it isn't just this, it was a straw that broke the camel's back. Filed a police report, gave it 2 weeks, nothing happened. Went to your code guys after 2 weeks and had pictures, city codes, and explained to him how all these vehicles were in violation, almost all of them were in violation. And he said, there's nothing I can do about that. And I said, wow. He said, I am, city council is my boss, and they're not allowing me to take action. And on each vehicle, and these aren't just expired plates. These are expired plates, out-of-state plates, inoperable vehicles, a number of different things, not just expired plates. And on each instance, he said, there's nothing I can do about that. And he said for me to come here, so I'm here. Now, to back up a bit, the situation on our street has been resolved. The elderly people that live there kicked their grandson out. Well, I shouldn't say that. But he's gone, and he hauled all the cars away in the last 2 days. But driving in our neighborhood, I started noticing a lot of abandoned cars, and within a half mile of our house, I documented 16 abandoned cars, and I know they're abandoned. There was only one that had current plates. But you can tell because there's leaves built up underneath them. It looks like a storage unit inside the car. The tires are flat. The tires are aged. There's gook all over the windows. I counted 16 of them within a half mile of our house. Some streets had as many as Erickson had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on Erickson Street in about a 3-block section. And this is something that shouldn't be let go. And I spent an hour and I found 16. I have pictures of them. I have an SD card. And why this is being let go, I don't know. If I lived in those apartment buildings on Erickson, a lot of blue-collar workers there, hard work, sheetrocker, or whatever. And I've lived in the same house 27 years, so I drive by the same apartments for years. The amount of on-street parking has exploded over the years. And I think it's due to the high cost of rent and more people living in one apartment, makes sense. But when you have to walk further because somebody decided they want to store their car on the street, that would really make me mad. And people, there's one on Sussex Way, the car has been there for 5 years. It's got holes in the floorboards. And this is junk. This is junk littering the public streets. And I want to know why. And that's why I'm here. I want to know why this is allowed to happen.
All right. Well, under normal circumstance, we don't address public comment, but I happen to know about your case because I was emailed about it. I know our city manager would be happy to follow up with you. I know that our police officers were tagging the vehicles, so they have to do certain things first to make sure the vehicles aren't towed accidentally, and so I think they concluded they're tagging them, making sure they didn't move, and then having them towed.
Just one more comment. I'm documenting all this. I see they're tagged over and over. We were going to tow, and they never tow them. They never tow them. I've seen cars tagged for years that never get towed. So I would like some follow-up on this.
Is your information on this card correct?
Yep.
I'll have the city manager reach out tomorrow.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Greg? You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Good evening, everybody. Oh, it's not on. Oh, I'm loud anyway. So, all right. Good evening, everybody. So, I just wanted to address the council about a few things regarding homelessness. Obviously, that's a pretty big topic, hot topic all across the state and nationally. I didn't get the comment online regarding the proposal that how you guys are going to implement 3115, the House measure, which is the most ridiculous House measure I've ever seen. I'm not sure how Kate Brown got that through, and it really puts you guys in an awkward position that we have to implement that in the city to allow camping. We just bought our first house here in the past year, so my wife and I are really stoked. We're by our favorite place, the library, which we've just seen really start to deteriorate. And it's a shame that we have to be put in a position where we're allowing people to camp. I guess I'm confused on the fact that the less you do, the more rights you have now. It seems to be like, I'm just confused by the whole concept that we have to allow camping publicly. That really baffles me, And in regard to homelessness in general, I am excited that you guys have used some of the state funding, that we're going to put a homeless shelter in that's going to provide services. I see that as a great start. And I wanted to just give some thoughts on that. When I look around at the homelessness situation, is not a one-size-fits-all problem, clearly. From just my observations, it seems to be 3 different tiers of people. There's the people who are bad luck or have been put in a bad position, whether it be abuse or they've had to leave their situations or lost jobs. So there's that tier, which the homeless shelter will be great for them. That will give them an opportunity to get back on their feet, get whatever medical needs they have met, and some help to get them back on their feet. The problem is the other 2 tiers that I see, and that is drug addicts. Okay, so these people are on some type of drug. I don't know what it is, and they are erratic, and we don't really know what they're going to do, and that bothers me for the community. So what are we doing to address them? The other part of that is the mentally ill. So we have unstable folks, they need help too. Yes, we all have rights as humans. I want to respect that as a United States citizen. I want us to be respectful of others, but at some point, do mentally ill people, can they make their own decisions? I don't know if that's the best option. So I wanted to see what the next steps are as we're looking forward. Okay, the homeless shelter is going in. Great. That's going to be an opportunity to help some of those folks. What are we doing to get the drug addicts off the street? Is there a way that we can come up with another type of shelter, which is a low security drug rehabilitation, where if you are caught with drugs in Beaverton, you must go spend 30 days in there, much like a rehab facility where you can't leave to get treatment. What does that look like? Is that an option? You know, is there also options where the city can get citizens? I noticed a lot of the homeless folks, they're not afraid. They know they can do what they want. They can pee all over, they can urinate, they can yell at people, they can throw their trash, and there's no repercussions. What are we doing for that? You know, could we do some type of community outreach where we have a police officer or a mental health professional and maybe some volunteers from the community where we go out and we say, hey, you know, this is still our town. We'll help you, but you better be respectful. So I just wanted to express those comments. Again, you know, I'm glad we're using the funding that we were provided from the state to get the first shelter, but I think we need to start looking at what those next steps are, because it's just not going to be enough. And
Heartedly agree with you, and if your contact information is correct, I will have a follow-up email sent to you.
Okay.
And the good news is we're working on a lot of the things you're discussing, so I'll have staff reach out to you tomorrow.
cool.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Have a
for
good night.
joining us tonight. All right, council, any council new items?
One quick thing. Sorry,
Councilor Kimmy?
I didn't. I attended the League of Cities conference in Seaside, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to attend, and I learned a lot. And then I highly encourage other city councilors to attend one of those meetings. It was really good, beneficial to us and me to interact with other councilors and mayors and hear about their stories. Very similar, but we're all passionate people that I noticed. We're not just Beaverton here, but we are among hundreds of people who's doing public service, and that's our friends. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Husson.
Yeah, I have two very opposing things. The first one is I want to welcome Adam and the scouts that are with him. Adam is a family that carpools with us who mentioned that they wanted to pop in and learn about civic engagement, so welcome. And the second thing I wanted to talk about was the budget. I know we've done a really good job at sort of getting closer to budget strategies. I chatted with the city manager around what it might look like for the council collectively to create some sort of a video and or budget message so that we are holding hands together around what the budget situation is like. So I'll pause if you feel ready to give a thumbs up for that, or we can talk over that as the budget conversations continue.
Well, the city manager did call me about that this week, and as a suggestion, I really like your idea, but 7 voices is hard to corral. I would suggest that the subcommittee that was deep involved kind of take on the messaging, because trying to get 7 people to talk in a video, I think it's going to be too long to capture any attention, and so I think a friendly amendment to your suggestion might be the subcommittee.
Amended.
And then I think the city manager has a couple plans on how she might tackle that. But I think the appropriate timing might be after the budget is through as a communication tool. Does that work for everyone? Okay. Council President.
Thank you. We talked a little bit about this, but Councilor Duggar and I have talked just a tiny bit about the Pride Parade. So I'm just looking for a raise of hands if anyone wants to be involved in the planning. I will still ask you to volunteer and show up, whether or not you want to help plan our float. But there are there's a competition for floats this year, and I'm very competitive. And so I was thinking if anyone wants to help with the planning, just let us know, and we will figure out what we got a top last year. So
Well, as the mayor, I get to make appointments to subcommittees, and I volunteer Councilor Kimmy because he always is talking about fun, so he is on the subcommittee to do that with you.
it's not an official subcommittee.
No, but I still get to make appointments. It's in the charter. You should read it. Cool. And it sounds like Councilor Husson wants to be involved too. And since Councilor Tivnan made 0 eye contact, I'm adding her to the committee as well. You just show up at the end and take credit. God, have I taught you nothing as the mayor? Okay. It sounds like you have a full active council that's ready to help, and we'll wrap you in bubble wrap this year and keep you away from the float. All right, Council President, I'm sorry, City Manager, any staff items this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. Just really quickly for the community's awareness, we have multiple budget meetings coming up that we would encourage you to tune into. May 8th and May 23rd are our budget committee meetings, followed by the final budget public hearing with the council on June 6th.
I heard that's also a national holiday.
It's also your birthday.
Thank you. Just making sure everyone knows. Thank you. Okay, Council President, consent agenda, please.
Yes, Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 7th, 2022.
Second.
All right, Councilor Kimmy seconds it. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none,
Yes.
we'll have the, oh,
Sorry.
you do?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
I just wanted to make two comments. The first one was on Agenda Bill 23090. For those of you who are watching, we've identified a developer for the senior housing on Fifth
Sorry,
Street.
point of order.
Councilor Hassan, we're just taking the meetings.
Be back for more.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Anyone have any comments on the meetings of the minutes from June 7th, 2022? Okay. Can we call the roll?
Counselor Duggar.
Abstain.
Counselor Hartmeyer Prigg.
Yes.
Counselor Hassan.
Yes.
Counselor Kimmy.
Yes.
Counselor Teeter.
Abstain.
Counselor Tivnon.
Yes.
Mayor Beatty.
Yes.
Minutes are approved, 5-0.
And if
With
you're
2
wondering
abstentions.
what you just witnessed, we have a relatively newer council. So when we're approving things when they were not on the council, it is customary that they abstain from it. So that's why we're taking consent into combinations tonight. Okay, with that, the rest of consent, please.
Yes, Mayor, I move that we approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by Councilor Hassan, and I believe you also have some thoughts, so by all means.
For those of you watching, sometimes we have competition on who will second first. So my comments that I was making at the wrong motion that I'm now making on the right motion. The first one was around Agenda Bill 23090. We approved a developer for senior housing on 5th Street. Super excited to see that. I know that there were some community-based organizations that were also a part of it, and I just hope we continue to elevate community-based organizations that are submitting proposals. My second comment is around Agenda Bill 23094, which is our MOU with the Family Justice Center of Washington County. I think, and I can obviously have these comments as a follow-up with the appropriate people. I think coming from my community, which is like an Indian Pakistani Muslim community, family justice and family relationships are complicated. And so when we talk about a partnership with the police and the Justice Center, I want to be really intentional and thoughtful, ensuring that our response to families that are struggling and going through issues is culturally responsive and trauma-informed. I'm sure that's happening, but I do think that given how highly diverse our population is, it's important that we're thinking about less punitive measures with families that are having issues and challenges and more restorative measures that are ensuring that families that can have healing can have healing. So I'll share more privately with some of those individuals, but wanted to put that on the record.
Any other comments on tonight's consent? All right, seeing none, will the recorder call the roll?
Counselor Hartmeyer Prigg.
Yes.
Counselor Kimmy.
Yes.
Counselor Tivnon.
Yes.
Counselor Duggar.
Yes.
Counselor Hassan.
Yes.
Counselor Teeter.
Yes.
Mayor Beatty.
Yes.
Consent agenda is approved, 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, we have our first proclamation of the evening. We have the Police Memorial Day and Week on that's Wednesday, May 15th to Tuesday, May 21st, 2023. I'll invite the police chief up. Okay. Proclamation from the Office of the Mayor. Whereas the Congress of the United States of America has designated May 15th to May 21, 2023 as National Police Week, and May 15th of each year to be the Police Memorial Day in honor of our federal, state, and municipal officers who have been killed or disabled in the line of duty. And whereas on October 24th, 2021, Beaverton Police Sergeant Bryant Gaunt lost his life, and during National Police Week this year, his name will be added to the State of Oregon Police Memorial in Salem and to the National Police Memorial in Washington, D.C. And whereas it is known that police officers face serious dangers, too often those dangers lead to serious injury, and unfortunately, some are killed in the line of duty. And whereas the City of Beaverton is proud of the law enforcement officers and wishes to recognize their commitment to public safety profession, and whereas the Beaverton Police Department is dedicated in preserving human rights, life, and dignity, and whereas Beaverton Police are committed to the highest professional standards, working in partnership with our community members to improve safety and quality of life for all. Now, therefore, I, Lacey Beatty, the Mayor of the City of Beaverton, do hereby proclaim May 15th, 2023 as Police Memorial Day, and the week of May 15th to Tuesday, May 21st as Police Week here in the City of Beaverton. Would you guys like to take some photos with our officers?
Can hold the proclamation together. That's fine. Yeah. All right. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
All right, and those that missed the police award ceremony this week, they unveiled a new flag for their building for the Honor Guard that they will use during professional events. Fun fact, the Honor Guard budget was approved, I believe, 4 cycles ago during our budget. We appropriated the money for the Honor Guard to purchase uniforms and rifles, so sometimes the power of budget can be small but mighty. Okay, our second proclamation this evening will be read by Councilor Kimmy.
Good proclamation, City of Beaverton. Whereas Beaverton celebrates its strength as one of the most diverse cities in Oregon, where 1 in 3 residents identifies as a person of color, and 1 in 5 was born outside of the United States. And whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander communities in Beaverton represent over 16% of the population and include dozens of languages and cultures, and whereas we recognize the generations of Asian American and Pacific Islanders who have enriched Beaverton's history, local economy, and cultural vibrancy, and who are instrumental to our future success, and whereas the month of May was chosen for this Heritage Month to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese to the United States on May 7th, 1843, and the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10th, 1869, for which the majority of the tracks laid were by Chinese immigrants. And whereas AAPI communities have preserved our over-discrimination, exclusion, persecution, incarceration, and disparities, and continue to experience injustices today. And whereas the theme of this year is advancing leaders through opportunity, and Beaverton is proud to advance this theme through programs such as BOLD. And whereas AAPI Heritage Month is a time to celebrate the remarkable achievements and pay tribute to the generations of Asian American and Pacific Islanders that have contributed to American history, society, and culture. Now, therefore, I, Lacey Beatty, Mayor of the City of Beaverton, do hereby proclaim May 2023 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the city of Beaverton, and encourage all to observe this month.
Thank you. Okay, our last proclamation of the evening, it's National Public Works Week, and I believe our Public Works Director has a few words. All right.
Mayor Beatty, City Council. I'm Tim Elsey. I'm your new Public Works Director. I've been here for about 2 months now. I want to thank you for this proclamation dedicating Public Works Week. One of the things you'll know about me, if you get to know me very well, is that I love public works and I love engineering, and I love to talk about public works and engineering. As a matter of fact, I had someone tell me after a meeting one time, I bet you're great at cocktail parties, and I'm not. He was being facetious. But the thing that I love about public works is not just the work that we do, but I so admire the people that do the work, because those are the people that make sure that we get to live our lives normally when things are not going well, or on an average Tuesday when you go to turn on the water or get a drink of water. And so tonight, rather than just highlighting the work that we do, I wanted to introduce you to just a few of the employees that I met in my first 2 months at Public Works. I want to mention that Dan Weinheimer gave me a great gift the first month I was here, and he kept the day-to-day operations of Public Works so that I could get out and get to meet the people that do the work. And though I'm very much an introvert, I also very much hearing great stories, and I heard some great stories while I was out there. And so I'm just going to introduce you to a few of the employees that I have time to introduce you to today. First, it would be the Echeverria brothers, Antonio, Arturo, and Daniel. Tony and Art are twins, you can probably tell, and when you get to know them, their love of life, their love of family, and their love of friends, and their love of public works just bubbles out of them. When I first met Art, I was in the sign shop. Art works in the sign shop, and Tony and Daniel work in street maintenance. And Art was telling me about his sons who are state champions in wrestling. And he walked out the door, and 2 minutes later, Tony came in, pretending he was Art, telling him about his sons that were state champions in wrestling. The first time I met Daniel actually was in an email. I didn't meet him face to face. It was from an exit interview that I read. And the person with the exit interview just said that Daniel had the strongest work ethic of any person that he had ever met. The next group I'd like to introduce you to are 3 of our newer engineering team, Eduardo Roman, Marissa Cummings, and Jorge Miranda. These are 3 young engineers that came to us within months of each other. And the reason that I really want to highlight them is not just because they're brilliant, they have a lot of energy, and they have become part of our team so quickly, but because they lean on each other on projects. And they reach out to each other without ego and without competition, because they know each one has greater strengths than they do in other areas. And I just wanted to let you know that your engineering team is going to serve you well for many years in the future, and these are going to be your base. The next person I'd like to introduce you to is Eleazar Sanchez. The first time I met Eleazar was on a water main break. He's a public works guy who's down in there getting wet. Eleazar was born in Mexico, and he grew up in Eastern Oregon. He came to us with a wealth of knowledge in the road and bridge construction, and he's quickly become an indispensable part of our water distribution team and has become a lead in less than 4 years on that team. And then finally, the last person I have time to introduce you to is Scott Peterson. Scott has only been with the city for 4 years, but came to us with an extensive background performing vehicle maintenance for car dealerships. He's a motorhead. He works on cars on his time off. And he has brought innovations and ideas to our fleet and fleet maintenance that will serve us well into the future. Again, has only been here 4 years and has already reached a level of leadership for us. I'm just going to end this by reading what Jorge said when asked why he was in public service. He said, "It's a unique opportunity to contribute to the community. It provides an unmatched satisfaction that I hope to keep enjoying for a long, long time. I'll certainly introduce you to more of our public works team in the future, but the one thing that I want you to take away from this is that you and the residents of the city of Beaverton are being very well served by these unsung heroes in public works. And thank you for your time."
Thank you. You'll have to ask Scott about his team when they had to teach me how to use the pump, the gas pump. So it was a great day. And pretty soon, all of Oregonians will share in my pleasure of pumping gas at the gas station, thanks to the legislature. With that, I'm going to read our proclamation tonight. Whereas public works service provided in our community are an integral part of our residents' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed community is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as water, sewer, streets, highways, capital improvement projects, and public building, and whereas the health, safety, and comfort of the community greatly depends on these faculties and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of those facilities are vital, dependent upon the effort and skill of public work officials, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff Public Works Department is material influenced by the understanding of the importance of the work. Now, therefore, I, Lacey Beatty, Mayor of the City of Beaverton, do hereby proclaim May 21st through 27th, 2023 as National Public Works Week in the City of Beaverton, and call upon our residents to recognize public work officials' contributions to our health, safety, and comfort every day. And while we don't have a proclamation, I also would like to remind everyone it's Municipal Clerks Week, and I want to thank our City Recorder's Office for their assistance with coordinating council meeting and preserving the legislative record. You guys are the unsung heroes of our council, so thank you for your hard work. For the record, Agenda Bill 23097, it is an ordinance amending the Beaverton Development Code related to parking, has been postponed. And on June 6, 2023, during the regularly scheduled City Council meeting, a public hearing will be held regarding an ordinance annexing one parcel at 3835 Southwest 96th Avenue and adjacent portions of 96th Avenue, withdrawing the properties from the Washington County Enhanced Sheriff Patrol District and Urban Road District, and adding the property to the West Slope Neighborhood Association Committee ANX 2022-003. On June 6, 2023, during the regularly scheduled City Council meeting, a public hearing will be held regarding an ordinance amending the comprehensive land use map and zoning map on the parcel at 8335 Southwest 96th Avenue and adjacent portions of 96th Avenue, CPA 2023-0001, ZMA 2023-0001. And on May 16th, 2023, and June 6th, 2023, which are regularly scheduled City Council meeting, public hearings will be held on an ordinance related to the prohibited camping and adopting Beaverton Code 5.18, amending Beaverton Codes Chapter 9.08, and repealing Beaverton Code Section 5.05-117 and 5.05.118. Okay, and we are on to our work session this evening, Agenda Bill 23101, discussion of City Council budget, and in the hot seat tonight is our Assistant City Manager, Dan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I admittedly do not have a presentation for you. Really wanted to, as best I could, facilitate a discussion as requested by the council. But before I hand it over to you for discussion, I just wanted to comment. Really what we're hopefully here to talk about is ideas for the budget and things that you're interested in including for this year. We're not talking about the actual budget. That'll come May 9th when it's presented through the budget message presentation and general presentation that evening. So by state law, we're limited to talking about this year's budget after that date and after that time. So really talking about the 23 budget, the one that we're wrapping up soon. So just for context, looking at that budget and thinking about what guidance we gave to our departments, which was a status quo budget, that's kind of the thought process going forward. So if there are ideas and thoughts to disabuse the staff of going forward with sort of a status quo budget, that would be a good discussion to have this evening. Also, just wanted to highlight in the budget, there are some key areas I think are key areas, I guess, but maybe you'll disagree, but to start the conversation, that are included in the two program budgets that are included in the City Council budget. So there's the Mayor's Office program and the City Council, just for the audience understanding. But within those two budgets, you've got things like membership fees, so joining and participating, the opportunity to be at the table for discussions among peers for the mayor or for council members at the National League of Cities or the League of Oregon Cities. Those are things that are included in that budget. There's also travel and training and subsistence, so going to events that those memberships entitle you to, conferences and other educational opportunities, things of that nature. And then also within the budget, and this is common in most of the budgets throughout the city, is professional services. And so that includes contracts and things that we would contract with an outside provider for. And so things in that budget, for instance, the professional services line item, we've got things like consulting services for governance training and for the retreat that the council had, things of that nature. So large ticket, but things that were not or are not provided by city staff. So I'll probably leave it there. I think the only other thing I wanted to highlight was boards and commissions expense, and that is for the Mayor's Youth Advisory Board. And so assuming that is continuing, that expense is included as well, just for your reference. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Dan. I think what people will find about the council and the mayor's budget is it only has a few line items since we don't do as much as the rest of the city. I do want to note, since we are talking about the budget, we are concluding that year's budget. In my office budget, we have a 20% reduction for this upcoming year to follow suit with what the city manager has asked most department heads to do. I've done more than most of our department heads have done, but we do have a pretty substantial cut to the mayor's office this year in spirit of what the city manager is asking department heads to do. Councillor Kimmy.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation, Dan. I just wanted to put into context where I suggested last city council meeting that we should review our budget, council budget, which includes the mayor's budget, is because it's more like a process where we should review our budget before, and then also tell the city manager and staff to bring to our budget, right? But one thing I learned was that it was never done. When there was a charter change in 2020, the new budget was implemented in January of 2021. But then the council as a whole body never really addressed it. And ever since then, as a council whole body, we have never addressed it. So I just wanted to bring this up for us to give our thoughts into our budget, which we set our own priorities, and then our budget should align with that. That was the reason why. And then also, I'm glad to see that mayor's budget has reduced 20%. So I wanted to also do our part in trying to reduce our budget as much as we can to meet the budget cuts that all the staff and department will be doing, so that we can show our intent that we are serious about meeting the budget expectation. So I think it's about time that we should kind of discuss what we want to see in our budget, and maybe ask questions to each other. I don't know how it was done before, but this was my understanding.
Well, I'll just say this has never been done because it's highly unusual, and I do believe the city manager told me today, in all of her years of being a city manager, this is the first time. So this is not a regular action of an elected body to discuss in detail this, because the budget comes from the city manager. And in this form of government, we are actually in charge of the entire budget, not just the council budget. So I just want to remind you guys. I would also say, I know in the spirit of the $10 million deficit that we're in, that we all want to make cuts. Your budget, the council budget, separate from the mayor's budget, is incredibly small, and in my opinion, can't withstand a cut. It needs to actually have added. And I know my chief of staff sent a rather long explanation to you guys that your budget actually wasn't adjusted when we added a new counselor. and it's not reflective of what you guys need to do your job, which is some of the similar work that I do. So I would say, like, I know that you guys want to come to this conversation and be in partnership and make cuts to your budget. When you review it, there is not a lot of places for cuts to come, because if we make a cut to the budget, it likely means the city manager has to add it to hers. And so I just would, in the spirit of a good discussion, I don't want us to cut the budget just to have the city manager add it to her side so we can pat ourselves on the back and call it a good day. I actually suggest that you guys need to add to your budget, not move away from it. You know, when you look at the personnel services line, that pays for the consultant for the council retreat. And if we remove it from our budget, it has to be picked up somewhere else. When you're looking at cell phones and pay, those are things that you guys have to do your job. The travel line is insufficient for this body of this size to go and do the work that you guys need to do. And so I have asked the city manager to actually add more to your budget coming into this following year, because I recognize how important it is for you guys to get professional development in your job, and what you experienced last week, Councilor Kimmy, is a small portion of it. And everyone should have that opportunity to have that professional development, because this is a young council. You guys need that kind of relationships to go see what other cities are doing. It doesn't do our city any good to have us here in a silo not learning from other expertise in cities. So, you know, when you start looking at some of the rest of your guys' expense, like some of it is office furniture that you guys need to do, periodic software, sponsorship. I don't know where you're going to make a cut. So I'm happy to facilitate this conversation. I just want you guys to know, like, think long and hard. Councilor Duggar. Sorry, I saw your first name and was blanking on your last name.
That is okay. First name would have been fine too. Conceptually, I think the root is this is the optics, right? We're asking the staff to, we're asking the city manager and the staff to take cuts, and I think so. I understand the reason. I will say this from a budgeting perspective. And this is for the folks listening, I've done this is my 5th time now, I think. It is really difficult for me to wrap my head around this process, because to me, you start with the need, not with the numbers, right? And like, this was the need last year, and it's really hard for me to contribute to any discussion tonight without knowing what our professional needs. I'm guessing, because this is a new council, they're not less than last year, right? That's my only thing, and that's the only line that to me is not very clear, because the rest is very infrastructure, like cell phones and email and software that I mean, I guess we could cut that. And if the consensus is we want to do that, then it's not a cross I'm going to die on. But like the professional services line, the $60,000, and maybe we just focus on that. Maybe the council president during budget will give us a presentation on what that pays for, and we can have the discussion then. But I don't see a whole lot of fat there. I do conceptually agree that, you know, we are asking staff and others, but I just struggle, as someone probably on the more fiscally conservative side than a lot of folks, I struggle with what we could do with this. So I kind of echo what the mayor said. Yeah, I think that's enough for me. Thanks.
Councilor Hassan.
Yeah, I think like my biggest comment is trying to make, I don't want to use the word equity, like I'll say equal. So like, how are we making sure this budget gets equal representation across all of us as elected leaders? I know that I've shared this, but like an example would be like, I didn't have an opportunity to travel. I was told there was no travel budget. Totally cool. That's like fine. I understand that. But so when you talk about like where we would cut, I'm like, I don't know. I do wonder though, like, as we move more toward this council manager form of government, like, should there be equity between the mayor budget and our budget? And then what does that look like? Because my gut is to go to the charter, right? And like, what does the charter say? And the charter tends to be really gray in some of these areas around like what it means to have a full-time mayor, what it means to have, what it means to have support for that mayor, because a lot of the budget does sit in the office of the mayor. Like, that's just the way that it makes sense today. Part of me wants to understand more about like when that chart, when we as we were moving to the council manager form of government, what was the vision for the Office of Mayor Office and what was the vision for the council, because that's something that I asked myself. I do think from an optics perspective, it's important that we're having this conversation. I just think, like, generally speaking, like, I'd love to understand, like, cities with council manager forms of government with full-time mayors, like, what did those budgets look like from other cities? Like, is there information? Is there not information? How are budgets done? Part of me wondered, is it normal for the mayor budget and the council budget to be separate or to be together? And I'd love to know if there's a reason that they're separate or not together, just merely out of curiosity.
Well, they're separated because the council, when you act as a body, has to do things in a public meeting. And so when I'm executing the budget to support the full-time role, it can't be mixed. Otherwise, we'd have to come every time I needed to buy pens and pencils and have it executed. And so, and it's also separated for optics, so we could see things, how they're operating.
Okay, but just to clarify, like, every time we use the budget, we don't run it by each other. So, like, help me understand what you mean when you say that.
Because it's supporting two different functions. The Office of the Mayor is full-time and has full-time staff, and a lot of what you're seeing here is in support of full-time work that the charter says around, being the chief communications person and all of that. And I think if it was mixed, it would be not very transparent. And, like, we can't have one travel budget. Like, how would that work? What I'm doing as the full-time mayor is different. And I think when we talk about equity, me being full-time has very different responsibilities than part-time. I also advocate for all of you to have travel money. So we should not make this a mayor versus council conversation, and where we're saying that you're getting less than what I'm giving, because what I want is you guys to have money to travel. It's never been the mayor's prerogative to say, you don't get to do things. I don't run your budget, the city manager does. And if we were looking, there used to be enough money for every elected official to do 2 conferences a year. And so I think that's really important. But the extra travel money in my budget is around going to DC and advocating. That's not a role of the council, that's a role of the mayor. And so, and then communication expenses, we have 3 full-time staff. There's not really much difference beyond my budget and your budget beyond travel. And I'm telling you, I'm asking the city manager to include more money for travel.
And so just to clarify, and this is more for us as a council, like, again, I understand that we didn't have budget for travel for all of the council, but I'd like for us to come up with a mechanism, and maybe this is just working with Jenny on, like, when we are doing purchases, like, how do we know that's happening? Because that was just something that, like, I didn't know what we were and weren't giving to, and I don't know if that just means, like, and I think part of it is asking for the quarterly budget report, which I know we got the thumbs up for, but in the past, a lot of the spending within our budget than yours has just been a matter of different people asking and not necessarily us being more unified. So maybe that's just more of a policy thought for us to think about, like, what's the procedure around specific budget requests.
I think the easiest way to solve it is just to give every counselor, say you can go to one thing, and that you're not coming back to each other saying, I want to go, do you not want to go? And so, and I'm perplexed because there is still money in your guys' budget this year. So I don't know why you couldn't travel. There's ending money in your budget. So that to me is perplexing. But I think the easiest way is to just say, like, every counselor gets to go to a trip.
And to that, I would say, as we're developing the budget, is there a way to say it's an X number budget for the council, and so each counselor will get X amount of money so that it is more equitable? Because I don't know that we've set that sort of rule, and I just want to make sure that we are, so that we're accountable to each other.
I think typically we try to have that in mind, kind of the end in mind of where we budgeting to go to, right? Like, what are the trips, and try to do that ahead of time. And so if there are specific trips that you're interested in, we can add those and make sure we've got the proper expenses. You know, when we look at conferences, for instance, you know, we have conferences on the staff side that move around the country, which I think some of the National League of Cities and U.S. Conference of Mayors do as well. So we try to budget accordingly, right? You know, so if it happens to be in Portland, we might send more staff, that sort of thing. And so if there are specific conferences or travel that you're interested in, we can definitely budget for that. That's actually super helpful to know now as we're building the budget. Yeah.
Councilor Kimmy?
Yeah, thank you for that. I read that big, huge packet of budget, right? But I'm glad that our budget was in the first few pages. And I noticed 2001, we have a budget increase of $1.3 million, right? and then went down to like 900,000. Now it's like 850,000 or so. So it's consistently decreasing, but I was just wondering, how did $1.3 million come into play in the 2001, and who decided that? Number two, that was because I want to understand how this process is actually developed. Who presents the council budget to the city manager, and then all of a sudden it's in our budget when the council has not discussed it. Maybe you can come back to me later on that. But overall, I'd like to see, this is my wish, that I'd like to see overall budget, council budget, mayor's budget to be reduced at least 15 to 20%. And then also that all of us may able to go to these national conferences at least one time, right? And then I think that could be easily adjusted. We're looking at the whole picture of mayor and council budget, and I think we could find money to do so without really increasing the total budget. And if everybody agrees, maybe we can have Jenny work on the numbers and come back to us on our budget discussion when it comes down to adopting the budget. If that, you guys will be interested in doing that. But I do like to understand the transparency, understand how the budget is developed, and maybe somebody can explain that to me.
Well, I think generally, from a high level, we are trying kind of the end in mind of, what are the key elements for that program. And so, thinking about the two programs in the council budget, the mayor's office and the council's, thinking again about, okay, if there's going to be travel, X amount, you do the research and build the numbers. I think what you're talking about, I'd have to definitely verify this, but my guess is that there were the structural changes happening with the charter. And so there are elements of that getting moved around and trying to figure out where they best land. And some items were included in the mayor's budget that have been since moved to the city manager's budget, not for the reason of moving them to plus up or whatever, but really about alignment, and thinking about who should own certain elements of contracts and things like that, right? So, when there's a professional services agreement, who actually is beholden to who is the contractor beholden to, right? So just making sure that it's the right arrangement, the right relationship, those kinds of things have been done. And some of that's, the us being new thing of, the new folks trying to understand how things have been done and tweaking the relationships, the sort of structural pieces of the budget. But in terms of I think the structure of building the budget annually for the council, it is helpful to get this kind of feedback of, we'd like to go to these events and building that ongoing cadence of going to certain conferences or being participants. I believe there are opportunities to serve on boards and things like that, right? So if you're on those things, of course, we're going to build in your ability to attend, those kinds of things. It's just, it comes back to priorities, and so I think to your point, how does it align with the council's priorities, whether they're the macro priorities of the city or whether they're specific. We know we need to accomplish X or Y thing this year, and so we're going to make a real push in DC, or we're going to make a big push in Salem, and we're going to try to do those kinds of things, and those are opportunities.
Right, and that's exactly why I wanted to bring it to the dais, is that we have to discuss, and that I want to see that reflected in our budget.
Yep.
And then in the future, then we would discuss with the city manager's office individually of our wants, or is this a good forum to discuss?
Can I just interject really quickly? So one of the reasons why this is kind of feeling hiccupy is because you're a new council under a new form of government, and you're building the airplane while you're flying it, right? So you haven't gone through a couple of cycles. And typically in a traditional council manager form of government, I would hear you be asking collectively throughout the year, Jenny, I would really like to travel to DC. Oh, okay, how many would you? And I keep note of these things, and then I build your budget accordingly, hence why the mayor said the city manager typically hasn't had an experience where the council will talk about building their budget publicly, and they wait for the budget meeting. So that's why it feels like, we're kind of riding this bike and it's a little wobbly, and so I think we need some time to kind of get the cadence as Dan referred to. If there is consensus for me to do anything with respect to the budget, I would ask that you save that until you get before the budget committee and direct me to do whatever it is you would like me to do, and I can come back with an amendment that reflects that for you.
Okay.
Councilor Tifnom.
Thank you. I'll just share my thoughts on this. I don't have any specific request. I really appreciate what you said about defining the need before the numbers. I'd never heard that before. And I think about that a lot. I remember when I was running for office, I sat down with each counselor one-on-one to say, how much time does it take to do this job? And every counselor had a different answer, which I thought was really interesting. It takes a lot of time. And I think it takes more time now that the form of government's changed. And a lot of that is going out to coffees and meeting with people serving on the boards, traveling, site visits, and we just have a lot of decisions that we're making together, and it requires a lot. I don't expense my mileage when I drive out to visit a site. I don't expense the coffees that I purchase for a resident who wants some of my time. But for things like Bend, when we got to go out there and meet with their Park and Rec district, I really appreciated being able to expense my mileage to drive all the way out there, and that we had hotels overnight so that we could have the time and space to really learn while we were there. I have not had the opportunity to go to a League of Oregon Cities or League of Cities conference yet. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to do that. I don't think I need to do it every year. If that helps, if we could get on some sort of a rotating schedule. And I'd say, looking at this list, the things that I need every day, I need my computer. I need that help to know what meetings I can go to, if it allows in my schedule, like ribbon cuttings and other things that we get extended. I don't know about these things unless they come to us. So the help from the city to help balance our schedules and make sure that we've got coverage at events, that there's counselors that are present for things. So it's really that interface with the calendaring, having the laptop, and it might seem small, but having branded material when you go out and people know that you're representing the city. So that comes out of here too. The one category that I look at, and I'm wondering exactly what it is, well, there's two of them. The community services designated contributions, just understanding what that is and what that money is allocated for, and then professional services, because they're broken out into two categories, one for mayor, one for city council. Those are two things I'd love to get clarification on. But the last thing I'll say is, I think part of the murkiness of the council budget versus the mayor's is that there's one mayor and there's several councilors, and we have one pot and the mayor has one pot. It's much more simple and straightforward with your budget and less so with ours. So how do we know how much money is left in one particular line item when we don't know who else on the council has asked for something? And if someone feels more emboldened to ask for it and someone else is shyer about it, maybe they missed their shot because they didn't step up to ask. So I think we could work on something to just make it easier for us to know what's available to us, what the opportunities are per year, and what's feasible financially. So I know that was a lot, but thank you.
So the line items, the 319 and 391 in our book are 319 is sponsorships, and we use that line item. It's a relatively new one to try to understand what contributions we're making to the community. And so there are expenses in that line item in the council budget. The community services designated contributions 391 is really similar. It's kind of a semantic thing perhaps, What that was used for this year was Pitch Black event sponsorship, which makes you wonder why it's not in the sponsorship category if it's labeled that way. But I think it's the intent behind it. But that came out of the council budget, not the mayor's budget. And for whatever reason, that's just where it was allocated right now.
I could give you a stab at it too. I added that line item when I was the council president because we were only allowed to go to events that the mayor had purchased tables for. And so we wanted a line item on the council, like if you wanted to go to a non-political event, like to say Centro's Gala and we didn't have a table, that there was funding for council to be able to do that, so you didn't have to pay out of pocket. The line item for branded clothing came when I was the council president because I felt it was really important that the mayor shouldn't be the only one that has gear to wear when we're in public. And I would always be at like picnics and not have any city branded gear, or they'd give me the polo from 15 years ago, and that's not what I wanted to wear. So those items were intended to make your job more accessible given the small stipend that the council receives. And the Pitch Black event was added this year because it wasn't part of our routine sponsorship, and it kind of came out of nowhere, and the city manager had discussed with council the importance of that event. And so sometimes these line items are a catch-all because we can't always project into the future things that might happen. Pitch Black coming here came out of left field, and so we needed to be able to sponsor right away. And so, and the council felt they wanted to sponsor it, not the city.
An opportunistic, taking advantage. Yep.
Councilor Husson?
Sure, I have a couple of comments. Councilor Tivenon, I actually do what you do, which is I've been expensing a lot of things. I don't know that everyone will have the privilege to do that, and I think we want to make a habit of maybe not expensing our personal time with constituents, right? Like, I know, but I was just listening to you, and I was like, let's just not, right? Because we don't know whether people will always be able to do that, so figuring out what that looks like in our budget for the future. So I'll just make some general comments. While I hesitate around any cutting of this budget, I'd say, please proceed with caution because there's not a lot in here. I do think from a professional services standpoint, I know that mostly goes to, I think, some of the consulting that we've had. I don't know that we're going to need that again. I know a lot of our council priorities and stuff are a 2-year coverage, so whether we don't need that again or we can find ways to reduce that, I'd like to see a reduction in that at some point. I definitely would like to be able to attend the A conference once if that's possible. I think that's more of a council conversation than a y'all conversation, and I think the rotation is a really good idea where we've figured out who can go, and to your point, like who's emboldened enough, right? And so how do we balance that? So that might be something that we need to work out, but I do think that allowing a counselor, a conference, a term or every 2 years is really important. I do think, just generally speaking, any travel that's like non-essential, like if there's anything that we're doing that's travel that's not essential, whether it's the mayor's budget or our budget, like really thinking about what's essential travel, like what do we need to be going to, what do we not need to be going to, who needs to be going, so that we can be more thoughtful of that. Thank you, Mayor, for letting us know that you did make a cut to the budget, because I do think, obviously, from an optical lens, we're all looking at a $10 million deficit, and we're talking about increasing property taxes, so really being thoughtful about how we're making cuts. So my direction is really, please make sure that we can do a couple of those things that I mentioned. I would like to know, just generally speaking for future, like how other cities that are potentially of our size and or of our nature that are in this kind of wonky council manager form of government do their work. I think that'd be helpful for us to make more decisions, and I know we'll continue to have more discussions about this, so thank you.
Councilor Duggar.
Yeah, thank you. Zoom is hard, okay? Yeah, I clicked unmute and there's anyway, yeah. No, that's okay. I was like, what is? It is interesting that we're having this meeting today, or this conversation today, on a day where the Secretary of State resigned. And one of the reasons she cited, regardless of how you feel, is underpay. And it's a really difficult conversation. I believe the budget And that's not the first. We lost a number of good friends, fantastic women leaders in our state that were in our state legislature last year for the same reason. At the end of the day, I don't think it's wise for us to nickel and dime our way through optics. At the end of the day, I'm more concerned about a highly functional, highly developed council, right? Because the reality is there is a cost to underdeveloping this body. There's a cost for us missing those League of City events. There's a cost for us not doing that. And it's really hard to capture, but we're seeing the fruits of that at the state already. And this is a young council. I'm one of the youngest ones here as far as like experience, but I'm experienced enough to know that if we cut this too much and we underdevelop, then we are going to push off a lot bigger costs into the future. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to win some optical battle that I'm not even sure people really even care about. And I, that cost, that appreciated cost of underdeveloping us is real. And I want us to be really, really careful with this. I remain open to, if the right evidence is put in front of me, to cutting some of this. I remain absolutely open to that. But I promise you, for me to get to a yes on that, I'll need to be convinced that the cost savings are greater than the future costs we're gonna incur. And I want us to be really thoughtful about that. I think that's a really, really, really something for us to think about as we leave tonight, and think about all of the stuff coming. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Councilor Teeter.
Thank you. Councilor Tibnon brought up the question about professional services earlier, and I would love to get clarification about that. It sounds like that's the council retreat, but there's professional services in both mayor budget and council budget. Can you break those down for us a little bit, Dan?
Yeah, the professional services that I'm aware of in the mayor's budget that's been spent that's really all I can comment on. But right now, I think say that's primarily State of the City, it looks like, in terms of video and communication support on that. In terms of the council's budget, I think that was really just the consulting for governance and the council retreats.
Okay, thank you. And then membership fees in both of those, you might have said those already.
So the membership, the mayor's budget is National League of Cities, and I think actually the memberships is entirely in the mayor's budget. There is a line item in the council's budget, but there's not been any draw on that. So it includes National League of Cities, the Oregon Mayors Association, Washington County Public Affairs Forum, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and Metropolitan Mayors Consortium.
Okay, thank you. And then the final ask that I would have for Dan and Jenny coming back is, if our budget cuts affect staffing and the mayor and council budget, can you show us what the impact of that would be, or can you show us options for reassignment or retaining those staff and administrative roles if the budget cuts go that deep?
Let me understand. You're talking about staff in the mayor's office, or are you talking about staff? Okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I will go back to this work session was requested by the council, so that's up to you all, I think, in the sense of being proposed. We're not, I'm not talking about this next year's budget, so there's, as I guess I can say, I'm not aware of any cut being proposed to said staff. But we could definitely get back to you. And I think I'll quote Jenny, if there are cuts that we're looking to make, we should probably do this in the budget committee meeting.
Okay, and then the boards and commissions line item, Jenny mentioned that briefly a few minutes ago. Are you all able to share any status updates with that line item, or is that something we need to wait on?
Well, I can talk about the 23 budget, and the board and commission line item is for the Mayor's Youth Advisory Board, so the support for them, and there was intent in the budget, I think, for the Youth Advisory Board to travel to DC for the National League of Cities conference, but I'm not aware that that occurred.
It did not occur, and we're recommending cutting that for next year.
Okay, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dan, that's it.
But it still costs to manage a board and commission, and so there's still need for funding in that line item.
Okay, thank you.
And not to, hide the lead here, but there's no, as I see my staff in the audience, there's no suggested cut to the 2 staff that work for me in the city. So I don't think there's a need for that. There's not a recommendation for cutting of those staff. Council President.
Thank you. I definitely think it could be something as we are working on our council rules subcommittee that, if we wanted to formalize something about travel or have a recommendation or whatever, I think that I wholeheartedly agree, Councilor Duggar. We're all very young in our service as city councilors. I gained so much in the October League of Cities that we went to. We already heard how great Councilor Kimmy received last week's League of Cities training, and so I do think that the travel piece is really important. I think last week when we had our fiscal sustainability committee or our presentation and work session together, we talked so much, and our amazing subcommittee told us to remember that the nickel and diming was not where it was at to actually make a difference in our budget, and so it's hard for me to look at our total and think that there's some sort of cut that we can make here that would be impactful. I think one thing I have to call out, because it is something that we look at with the rest of the budgets as we were talking last week, is where is money coming in, right? What are sources of revenue? And I will say that the mayor's office has been a significant source of revenue for us. And I think that that's also why I feel very confident that we need to keep budget levels where they are to enable that travel, to enable that advocacy. We will have a pilot project on the Loop because of the work that the mayor's office did with our federal government. We have purchased a building to help serve our community through the homeless shelter that we've built, and there's services going into that building that won't be coming from our general fund at a time that we don't have extra money to spare. So I just want to call that out because I think that is something that we have to see. I say this at work a lot too, we have to spend money to make money, we have to spend money to grow. And so I feel like that's an investment in our city to put that in. As much as I wish Congresswoman Bonamici wanted to have meetings with me, she wants to talk to the mayor of the city, right? She doesn't want to talk to the councilor of the city. And so I do think it's something that we should see this as an investment in our city, an investment in our community, an investment in our future, because we know how transformative the Loop is going to be. We heard tonight from members of our community about the importance of the shelter being just one piece of our homeless response, right? So I feel like it's really hard when we talk about we need to really take care of our budget, but I guess I see so much of our budget as being an investment in this council being the best council as we can be for our city to serve our community, to give our mayor the tools to go out and bring in that revenue in a time when we really desperately need it. Last week we were talking about all the different tools that we're going to have to employ. So I feel really comfortable where this is. I think that we should definitely continue the conversation around, sorry, Councilor Kimmy, I feel like I'm ignoring you, but I'm not, I promise. I feel so strongly that we should just continue this conversation as a body, right? And I don't think we need each other's permission to spend money necessarily, right? But I do think it's something along the year. I was just checking quickly. NLC this year is in Atlanta in November. So probably on December 1st, they're going to announce where 2024 NLC is, and we can give that feedback and saying hey, yeah, we have this many interested in going. We can get a quick, price of what that will be and plan for that into the next year's budget. So I think it's things like that along the way as they're coming up, and to use our regular one-ons with Jenny to give her that feedback on things that we need to be the best council to really serve our community. And then I think we can also use council new business almost as a chance to check in with each other on things if we need to on an ad hoc basis about these things, because some things might not need to be formalized. So anyways, all that to say, I'm comfortable with where this is at, and I really appreciate the transparency, so that we all feel comfortable seeing like how the money is being spent. I think I might just have one response to Councilor Husson about the retreat costs and professional services. I agree we made 2-year plans. I'm a little nervous about saying, because I think we still need a retreat, right? Even if we don't necessarily need to do the full-blown goal setting. I think that's part of the investment in us too, because I know I gained a lot in almost like coaching and education through those sessions. So I think I would be comfortable keeping it there, but I also think it's a really good thing for us to scrutinize and look at what's the appropriate amount, and is it a number that would actually change depending on which year in that cycle we are together.
Councilor Kimmy?
Yeah, I do appreciate all the conversation. I think this is something that we should do, not often, maybe once a year. We have, as I said, we have never done this before, so we don't know where each of us stand. I want to ask Jenny and the city councilors that is it possible? I appreciate the fact that mayor have decreased the budget by 20%. When I say council budget, I'm talking about mayor's budget and a council budget altogether, because that is called council budget in our budget, right? So you think there's a possibility if we could empower you to have at least somewhat of decrease in reduction overall, everybody, right? Includes the mayor's budget, which has already happened. And then also able us councilors to somehow put it in a way that we understand how much each councilor has for use in our discretion. If that's possible, maybe I could get agreement from other councilors that we can have Jenny look at that. So reduce overall budget, but come up with a creative way for us to get what we desire as an investment. So,
well, you're welcome, Councilor Kimmy, because like I started, I already made a cut.
Right.
So
Right.
there's no need for this. I mean, there's no place
Right.
to cut. What I've heard, the only suggestion I've heard is professional services, and what we need to do is add for travel. And so I think we can cover all of that in here. I mean, we just, for context, we just approved $10.5 million in a Metro Affordable Housing Bond. We just purchased 2 bicycle tool stations here. So much of what we have going on here is in the millions and millions of dollars. Let's not trip over, a $100 bill trying to save a penny. And I think the city manager definitely can come back with a budget where everyone can travel. And if you ask my advice, I've been to every conference. Go to City Summit in November, not DC. DC is a gaggle where you're with tons of people and you're talking to people that you're already talking to here. But City Summit is in a new city. You get to see great things. And if you're new, going to the League of Cities here in Oregon is a great place to just get your feet wet and do some of that bonding work and having those kind of partnership, because there's no sense in which we could reduce the budget and give more money for travel. Like, those just two things can't exist. So I cut on your guys' behalf, and the city manager is added for travel. Councilor Husson?
I wanted to respond to Councilor Hartmeyer-Prigg, and now I feel like I have to respond to Councilor Kimmy. This is what happens when, anyways. Councilor Kimmy, if it helps to give a direction that we'd like to see some sort of reductions based on what you've heard, know that you've got my head nod. What I wanted to say to Councilor Hartmeyer-Prigg was, I agree on the professional services, and one ask that I would have, and I don't think we have to ask them, so I'm going to look at you all and Councilor Teeter. If there's a year where we're not going to do professional services, for example, is that a time for us to transfer that money over to, and I'm assuming it's allowed, but like to travel and or to community-based organizations or some of the other things that we want to do. And I do think that quarterly budget that we're going to be getting now will allow us to have more of a snapshot of if and when we can do things like that. So I really appreciated when you mentioned that, because I was like, oh, and if we didn't in a year, or we needed less in a year, then like what are other more creative ways? I am a big fan of trying to infuse that back in our community, whatever that looks like. So just wanted to share that. Thanks.
Well, I thought I had something really good to say, but I might have lost it. But I didn't hear consensus from this council for me to go back and noodle on your budget. But I would suggest a couple of things that staff is and will be doing. So usually what we do is we like to look at year-end numbers, and we like to track overspending, underspending, and those are things that we would do with the council's budget as well. You always want to have wiggle room because things come up. So you don't want to cut your nose off to spite your face. There's training that comes up. There's opportunities that you can't foresee. So we would always want some wiggle room. But there's some opportunity to see where you're not spending. And if you're not, then we should talk collectively about reducing that, right? Maybe you need more money in travel, but you really aren't going to the number of events you used to go to, or your food items are not as much. But at the end of the day, I really appreciate the work that you're doing, having this conversation, but we've got some really big structural issues, and I think cutting your budget is probably not necessarily the solution. I think, though, we need to be wise and efficient with the money, so I want to continue to have this conversation. But I do think at a minimum, your budget should reflect an adequate enough money so that you can travel and educate yourself. So at a minimum, I want to make sure that your budget allows you to be that high-functioning council that Councilor Duggar was referring to. And so I'm going to endeavor to do that for this budget coming up. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that some of the themes that I heard this evening are going to be reflected in the conversation that we're going to have next week and the week after. So I think that's great that we're on the same wavelength in terms of making sure that you are funded appropriately to travel and educate yourself in the places that you want to get educated. So I will be waiting for an amendment over the next month if you choose to want to do something creatively with your budget. Otherwise, I did not hear any direction for me to start actually actively doing that at this time.
I would just end our conversation by saying, don't shortchange yourself. This is a really hard job, and you get a very small stipend for the work that you do to do this, and you should not be accruing debt to do this work because it makes it unattainable for other people. And as we espouse and talk so much about equity and who we want to see in this role, it's not about your individual finances, and if you make a big enough salary to be able to cover the 48 coffees a month you're having or whatever it is, you're paying for your own conference, we have to get out of this idea that it is about us. It is about who is not at this table. And if we truly want to live our values, we have to look at it in our budget. And to cut just to make cuts to feel good is not a good place for us to be. You need to invest in yourselves. I have been begging the council since I've been the mayor to do trips. This isn't a me versus you. What the city manager just said is the reason the council budget for travel is so low is no councilor's taken the opportunity to travel. So every year when they close out the budget, they've shrinked it because no one is actualizing it. And so we are here telling the city manager, you want to travel more. And it makes sense. We're coming out of COVID. We're a more stabilized government. It's the right time. So I'm excited to see you guys at conferences and expanding your personal opportunities. And collectively, we have a lot of work to do together. So I appreciate the conversation, Dan. Great facilitation. I figured when you had no tie, it was going to be a little bit more cash tonight. So I appreciate that. Any other business before the council tonight, City Manager? Because we have canceled our executive session. So I believe that's it for the evening. And with that, I will adjourn tonight's meeting.